Well, a new survey of Hoosiers shows that abortion care in Indiana already hard to come by. Well, with the Supreme Court's recent decision to overturn Roe versus Wade, health experts are now worried further abortion restrictions could harm Hoosier families. Indiana University professor of pediatrics, Dr. Tracy Wilkinson, breaks down the survey's results in tonight's Unfiltered. Dr. Wilkinson, I appreciate you taking some time. So I looked at this study, eye-opening stuff here. What to you was the most shocking piece of this survey?
I think when I look at the data from this project, it just shows that, the people getting abortions in Indiana look like every other Hoosier that I know. They look like the mothers and the women that I call my friends, my colleagues, and my neighbors. And I think it's important to also remember how hard it is already to get an abortion in the state of Indiana. And that's incredibly important to think about as our special session is about to open up and talk about even more restrictions that are going to make it even harder to obtain access to, comprehensive reproductive health care, including abortion.
And is that what you think is going to happen? It's going to get even more difficult to get an abortion here in the state?
I mean, all indications coming from the State House is that is what their plan is, making it hard for even victims of rape, incest, and people with chronic medical conditions to be able to access healthcare, including abortion.
What's your biggest fear if that does come to fruition?
My biggest fear is the impact it's going to have on regular Hoosiers. So, we already have very high rates of infant and maternal mortality in our state. I anticipate that those will get much, much worse as we start restricting abortion access even further.
Break down this survey, if you can, a little bit more for us. Aside from what we talked about earlier, what else stood out to you?
Yeah, that there were a lot of people, half of the participants identified as being Catholic or Christian. A large majority of the participants were already parents and mothers. And so, I think that the misperception of who is getting an abortion is really clearly not seen in this data. We're seeing religious individuals, parents, mothers that are making these decisions because they have their best interest in mind. And when we restrict abortion access, these outcomes that I'm worried about as a physician and as a Hoosier, infant and maternal mortality are going to get worse.
Public perception when it comes to abortion, I think, has changed over the years dramatically. As you mentioned in this survey, Catholics and Christians were a part of it. And I think even politically speaking, I think Republicans have even changed their perception of abortion and abortion rights in America. So that being said, are you surprised what has happened and transpired over the past several weeks?
I am surprised, but it's not completely surprising given the fact that this has been the goal for many years, decades worth of work to make sure that this decision did not lay in the hands of the people that it should be, and that are patients. With the recent Supreme Court decision, we now have state legislatures that have very little to no medical training, legislating medicine and removing access to comprehensive health care for the people in their state. And I would say that they don't represent the majority. Opinion polls about abortion access are very much more midline than where all these state legislatures are going. And so how do we fix that?
Yeah. One more question for you, Dr. Wilkinson, and I appreciate you taking some time, is what do you recommend to women if things do change drastically here over the next few weeks?
Yeah, I would say make sure that you have all of the options and access that you can. So have conversations with your partners about, options about birth control, making sure that you have the resources. One of the things about this survey that was heartbreaking was that people are already having to choose between paying for food, for their rent, to access healthcare. And, thinking that now women are going to have to travel hundreds of miles to access that healthcare, most likely outside of our state, are things that make me stay up at night and are really, really, really concerning.
Yeah. We'll see what happens. Dr. Wilkinson, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.